I'm here today with Ramona Kitto Stately, a member of the Santee Sioux Nation and the project director for We Are Still Here, Minnesota. Thanks for being here today, Ramona.
Thank you for having me.
Ramona, I'd like to start with letting our viewers know more about We Are Still Here, Minnesota, because I'm sure many of them are not familiar with what you're trying to do there.
Thank you. So We Are Still Here, Minnesota is a new initiative, and it's a project under the Native Governance Center. And it was created in response to historic research done on really what does America know about Native American people. And in the findings of that research, we found that Native people are very invisible. There is no education, really any curriculum that talks about Native people after 1900. So essentially, we're really in the background. And what that does is it opens up space for toxic stereotypes and for people to kind of create their own narrative. And so We Are Still Here, Minnesota is a network of people and organizations, Native organizations, that come together to change the attitudes and perceptions of the dominant narratives that have been written by basically white men in history a long time ago, and we're still dealing with the impact of those.
So a big focus is changing the narrative. What does that look like?
So changing the narrative can look like so many different things. One of the biggest examples I can say, if you're looking at changing the narrative, is mascots. You know, we see now that certain organizations realize that it's very detrimental to the identity of Native people to have a mascot that promotes stereotypes about Native people and also keeps us in the past. You know, we are contemporary and we are modern people today. You know, we are ancient, but we are also contemporary. And so things like that really allow people to make their own judgments about Native people that aren't true. Another thing that narrative change looks like is even as a head of a company or an organization, add a land acknowledgement. Know what treaty your land is on and acknowledge the people of that land. And that's very simple, but it can't be just we're acknowledging the people of that land, but also doing something to an action step that goes with that, such as understanding or knowing the 11 tribes in the nation or putting the flags of the nation, especially for schools. Hang the flags of the nations that are represented in your state. Um, Also acknowledging some of the contemporary things about Native people. So many people might not know that our tribal nations are the 14th largest employer in the state. And 67% of those people are white people that are not part of the reservation. And they are full-time employees and they gain great benefits. And we don't acknowledge those things. We don't acknowledge that our tribal nations are the second largest tourist attraction in our state. And so when we think about our state of Minnesota, and we're all proud of it, we think about uh, it's a great place to live, people want to come here, but it's not that way for all people because some of us are invisible. And the contributions of our tribal nations is huge in our state. Um, so looking at the positive and contemporary parts is another of our Native nations is another great way of changing the narrative.
Ramona, I mean, that's so true. I had no idea, and I would have never guessed that tribal nations employed so many people and were such a huge employer in the state. Thank you for the time you took today to be on here and share some of that with us. I hope to have you again to talk more about this another time.
Thank you so much.